Hello, welcome back to the Domino Effect. I'm your host, Nicolette Sewell. In today's world, financial uncertainty weighs heavily on the minds of many residents. How does debt collection work in Florida? What happens if I have a judgment for money against me? Can I or should I file for bankruptcy to deal with my debt situation? As if these financial problems aren't stressful enough, scams, fraud, and identity theft can put an even heavier weight on our shoulders. In this episode, local nonprofit organization, the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar Association, will sit with District 3 Commissioner Mayra Uribe to discuss these issues and vital resources available in the community to help residents combat them. This is the Domino Effect.
Hello, I'm Camilo Parra, staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society. I'm joined by Commissioner Mayra Uribe to discuss issues facing our community. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.
So, what are some things that your community is currently facing?
I think our community is facing a lot of what we're seeing just nationally and across the state of Florida and in Central Florida. Housing issues, rental issues, food disparity issues, financial issues. They all continue to grow. I mean, these issues were never prior to COVID or before, but I think the current status of what's going on in our country has really escalated those to put people in uncomfortable situations and difficult situations now.
You mentioned housing. Mm-hmm. That's been a huge issue for the past 2 years.
It's been an issue for a decade, really. And this is something that we were tackling as a commission before COVID even reared its way into the United States. But what COVID has done is heightened it more because of job insecurity, because of illnesses, because of so many things that have happened in the last 2 years. It has made it even more frightening. And then the actual housing system has changed dramatically. It's a demand market. And when you've got a demand market, you've got individuals that want to make as much money as they can off of their properties. And unfortunately, individuals are not making the same amount of money to the rate of how pricing has gone up when it comes to apartments and homes.
Certainly. The market is kind of out of control, and something that often is a result of these housing issues is debt collection.
Yes, and I always tell people, try to avoid evictions, try to avoid foreclosures, because it really does leave such a bad mark on your credit that when you think of your future and how you're going to recover, it's not as easy. Whenever I talk to young people, actually, I tell them there's 2 things to always remember. Not to get arrested, so don't get a criminal report, and be careful with your credit, because your credit will define what opportunities you have in your future. And when we see the housing market now, and I'm so proud that the county with legal aid has worked on the pre-eviction process, which hopefully has helped a lot of people. And we're happy that the clerk of courts has been also influential in trying to stop landlords from filing evictions, and we've been offering rental assistance. So there's been a lot of measures, and a great hand goes to legal aid for really taking that part, doing those applications, and trying to save people from losing their homes.
I can assure you, we've saved a lot of households.
That's great.
We've preserved a lot of housing stability, and I'm just so proud of everything that we've done, and thank you for always supporting us in this.
Oh, no, I mean, you guys are excellent, and what you provide to our community is wonderful, but many people still don't know where to go to get help. And I think opportunities like this to talk about it, have those individuals who are sitting at home concerned, who don't know how they're going to pay their July rent or their August rent, can try to get ahead of it. I know a lot of times people think out of sight, out of mind, but you can't be with these issues that could affect your livelihood and your household when it comes to that. You've got to try, and I tell people all the time, reach out to legal aid. If anything, you may get guidance, you may get information. If they can help you, great. If they can't, they usually try to guide you somewhere or refer you to someone who can assist.
Exactly, and something you mentioned earlier, that it's a lot of what we do, both of us at our groups, what we do is we try to prevent these things.
Right.
Because sadly, there does come a point where it's not that all is lost, it's just that you want to mitigate damages. You want to avoid evictions, like you said. You want to avoid these collection actions. And prevention, I think the most important thing is education, getting out there and teaching people what they need to know about the process, about the system, what to look out for.
Yeah.
What's a 3-day notice? What can you do? When is it that you should be reaching out to the legal aid? And the answer really is there's no time too soon.
Yeah.
Call us before you're behind in rent.
Yeah.
Call us before you're behind in your credit card payments, and then we can try to help mitigate the loss. Try to navigate the process in a way that's going to leave you in the best position possible. Because the further down the road it is, it gets tougher.
Yeah, yeah, and it does change a lot. I had a constituent recently who was evicted and trying to now qualify for another apartment, although she has a job, has been very difficult. She's considered an at-risk tenant. So what they call the not most desirable kind of tenant someone has to have. And I wish as a county we could work on that more, because people make mistakes. Things happen. You lose your job. Someone falls ill. Someone passes away. COVID hits. We can't all expect it to have that survival mode, going on. And we cannot become a one or nothing kind of society. And unfortunately, the most vulnerable are the ones that suffer: children, families, all of these things that continue out, and it's not beneficial either mentally, emotionally. It can tear people apart. It can really put people at a vulnerable state, including children, which is very difficult to see children, and I'm sure you do see their parents go through this, and not have stable household. Is very difficult as an elected official to watch, because as a mom, I'm ultimately a mom first, I can't even imagine the pain that it brings innocent children.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
It is absolutely brutal. And you mentioned something that I wish more people realized. Once you have that eviction on your record, it's kind of a permanent blemish.
Yeah.
It is for some people, it locks them out entirely from affordable housing. And a lot of people don't realize that it doesn't have to do with actually getting evicted. What it has to do with is the filing, just the filing. So one thing I tell a lot of our clients and people across the state when we're trying to educate everyone about the process is, filed is forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you actually get evicted or not. It doesn't matter if you won the court case, lost the court case. When you go to apply to a place to stay, they're going to do a background check. They're going to see the eviction filing. Are they going to dig deep and figure out who won, who lost, who was right, who was wrong? Probably not. In fact, a lot of times it's not even like a person who's like doing these by hand. They have a printout that they get that tells them eviction on the record, yes or no, maybe how old it is, maybe if the case is closed or not. And so what does that lead to? When that is on the record, it can be rejection of rental applications outright. It could be higher security deposits. It could be non-refundable fees. They're not charging everybody else. And in some cases, even higher rent.
Right.
So it's brutal. And right now, when that goes on your record, it just stays. It stays on your record. There's some ways you can maybe try to alleviate the damage, but it's not a simple process. It's not a guaranteed process. A lot of this is trying to get people that information before it is an issue, before that eviction is filed, and help them get the rental assistance funds and help negotiate with those landlords. But all of it's so preventative, and I think that's something I wish more people understood, is the urgency of this. Don't hide your head in the sand. As soon as you get that 3-day notice, start calling. Call legal aid. Call us and let us help you navigate the process.
And that's something great that Orange County does do. If you've had an eviction, they are working purposeful with those individuals, because something could happen. You never know. And I tell people, I always tell people, just if they file that, it's done. It's done. And so you want to prevent that to happen. You need to communicate with your landlord. You can't avoid them. It's better to be, say, look, I can't pay my rent. Can I do this? Is there an option? Can I, is there a possibility to get help? And we want renters to know we have resources too. Have a heart. Don't ruin. How important and how vital, if you file an eviction notice on someone, will change their entire future when it comes to housing. Try to help them. And ultimately, hopefully, we get your money, so which is what you want. And we have opportunities to help not make that grave, grave disappointment that's going to change their lives and their future.
Absolutely. And it's just preventative and
Yeah.
education. Those are the two big things for me: prevention, education. When the people are educated, they're able to prevent these situations in the first place. Something that I just kind of wanted to since we're part of this is we're trying to educate the public.
Right.
Something I want to just get out there for people is obviously a lot of these housing situations become a debt collection matter. And when that's the case, just as important with the housing thing, you gotta be proactive. You gotta act quickly. So as soon as you find out that you're getting these letters from a debt collector, that's when you gotta call legal aid. That's when you gotta start reaching out. Don't wait, don't hide your head in the sand. Because the debt collection process, just to give a quick overview of how it could play out, you start getting those collection letters, you know, like you get the letter from your previous landlord, or probably an attorney of your previous landlord, saying you still owe this rent. And the next step would be, if you don't take care of it, you know, hopefully get like on a payment plan or something, the next step is they're probably going to file a lawsuit against you to collect the money. And again, once an individual is served with this, the clock starts to tick. They only have 20 days to answer, and they really should be reaching out to legal aid as soon as possible in those early parts of the 20 days to give the legal aid time to actually respond, to actually assist, help them navigate the process. What is the purpose of the landlord or the person who has the debt trying to sue someone for this? They're trying to get a judgment. They're trying to get a piece of paper from a judge that says, yes, you owe this money. Once they have that, they have options. One thing they will probably do is they'll try to garnish their wages. And this is where it is also crucial. If any of our community are facing a wage garnishment, they need to act very quickly. The minute they find out their wages are being garnished, that's when they need to reach out for assistance, because there's a brief 20-day period that they get to make a claim of an exemption, to hopefully not have to continue to have their wages garnished. And I just wanted to get that out there for people.
That's great. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
So unfortunately, unless you walk those shoes, you don't tend to know. And I really appreciate this knowledge and education, because we get to share this with people. Like you said, people think, well, I got evicted, I'm done, I'm out, and I'm clear, and it's not. They're going to come back. They want their money. And I tell people all the time, and as harsh as it is, they want to get paid. Whether you're there or not, and there's a debt, they want to get paid. Just like credit cards want to get paid, just like rentals want to get paid. Everyone is looking to get their share of what you committed to pay. And so you don't ever walk away from that. I mean, death, you know, and that's ultimately, but you have to realize you're dealing with these things, and you have to be prepared. And something that really bothers me is culturally, they don't always know what's going on. And we have to be knowledgeable of how those cultures interpret this information. Because in the United States, I tell people, it's very, very different than it could be in your country. So.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
No, I appreciate you guys.
It's an honor to speak to you today. We're going to take a short break to share a few short messages with you and recognize our generous sponsors. We'll be back with more of the Domino Effect after this.
It was really, really important to just have someone walk me down the path, not just the legalities of it, but just understanding the foster system, because there are so many loopholes. And when you go into it blindly, and I say blindly, and I use that term loosely because you go through classes and they prep you and they teach you things and they paint a picture of what possible scenarios look like for you. I always say my legal aid person was a blessing for me, 100% a blessing. And now I'm a mom. Yeah. And now I'm a mom.
Without the Legal Aid Society, people are homeless. Without the Legal Aid Society, people do not have the ability to care for their children. Without the Legal Aid Society, people do not have the ability to secure documentation which enables them to work lawfully. They don't have the ability to escape violent relationships that could physically endanger them for the rest of their lives. The really amazing side of that coin is with the Legal Aid Society, people are empowered to become survivors. They are empowered to make the changes they've always wanted to make in their lives. And the community of attorneys, of business professionals, of teachers, of everyone in Orange County, by virtue of their contributions, owns those successes.
Can health insurance help cure loneliness? Can it take care of your best friend too? Or hold your hand for 9 months? Can it be there for you at 3 a.m.? Or inspire you to go the extra mile? We think so, which is why every day we ask ourselves, what else can health insurance do? Come find out.
I understood his background and where he was coming from, being in the military, and having that background myself. I knew he needed to feel me out and see what kind of guy I was before he was going to trust me to handle his situation. So as I would have in the military, I gave it to him like it is, and then said, now that you know that, let's go see what kind of deal we can make. That's the reward at the end of the day. It's not about money, it's not about prestige, it's about making a difference in somebody's life.
After my 20 years in the military, trusting somebody, like I trust Jay and he take care of me, it's kind of hard for me to trust anybody. He's a good, very good man. Very good man. It's like one of my buddies in the military. I can turn my 6, which is my back, and I know I can trust him. He won't do no harm. He gonna help me out.
Welcome back to the Domino Effect. I have Commissioner Uribe with me, and we're going to jump into our next topic, scam avoidance and fraud. So, Commissioner Uribe, what are you seeing on your end for your constituents as far as scam and fraud and identity theft?
Too much. And I don't want to name any companies or anything like that, but we see too much. Everything from solar scams to educational scams to credit cards to loans to water filtrations, you name it, to roofing. I mean, it is very, very discouraging to get those calls from desperate citizens and residents who don't know what they've done, who don't know the implications, and believe the person at the door, believe the person on the phone, and are in a difficult situation now. And it's tough. It's tough to hear.
It's very tough, and we see a whole lot of that on our end, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Something I'm personally seeing a lot of right now is housing scams. There's people, and what I tell people is try to double check who you're dealing with. You know, like you can Orange County Property Appraiser website, for example. You can go on there, plug in an address, and it'll tell you who the owner is. And if it's someone else, maybe you should start asking questions before you sign a lease. And that's just one tiny little example of all the very creative ways that unscrupulous people have figured out how to take advantage of the undereducated, the elderly, people who just, it's not their fault. They don't know better. They want to trust people. They want to believe in people. It's a heinous act.
Well, you know, it kind of goes back to, and you really hate to, I think about my mom. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And I tell this to my daughter all the time. She'll read something like, oh, look at this. They'll do free solar on our house. No, somebody's going to get paid, and it's going to be you, and you don't know it. You know, and we get these calls, and it's most disheartening when we get them from elderly people, because they have limited income. They have a fixed income, and they get a call thinking they're getting help, and they're not. And we're limited as government. You know, we're limited on what we can do, and most of the time, it's not even someone local. Someone from out of the state of Florida who's doing these calls or walking through neighborhoods and trying to sell goods and services. But the rental ones are the horrible ones, where they said, you got to pay the first month rent right now. And, you know, people may say, well, they collected $1,000, but from how many people? You know, and that's where it gets very heinous. And you may want to go quickly because you may think, and especially with the housing market, if I don't put a deposit down, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose the opportunity. You still have to take your time. You still have to do your homework, because ultimately you're putting your financial money at risk. And hopefully you're not giving your social security number, or you're not giving your date of birth, which is something we see all the time. And even with car accidents, you've got people who are not even attorneys trying to get, you know, clients to then sell them to lawyers, and they want your date of birth and your social. And it's heinous. And we live in a society where you have to look out for everything.
You said a lot of gold stuff right there. Some really good prevention tips. Starting with, I love how you said, at the very beginning, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
What I would add to that is there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. You will not, in almost any circumstance, actually receive something for free. There's a catch. There's something that someone is receiving somewhere. Some other great tips: don't ever give out your social security number to anyone. Social Security will never call you and ask you for your social security number.
Never.
Very common scam. Your date of birth should also be guarded pretty heavily. People should check their credit reports. That's something people need to do very frequently. A good resource is you can actually go on annualcreditreport.com, and once per year you can get a free credit report from each of the 3 big credit bureaus completely free.
That's great. Credit, what is the website?
Annualcreditreport.com.
I need to do that.
Yes, everyone should be doing
I
this.
haven't had my credit report done in 3 years. The last
Oh
time
my
when
gosh.
when I bought my car. Annualcreditreport.com. That's a great source. And it's very important. But I don't give out my information though either. So
right.
I'm very knowledgeable about that. But I've even seen something interesting. Buying tickets to a concert online, asking for your social security number. Wow. Now, it was a 3rd or 4th party vendor, but I was appalled. Buying tickets to a concert. And I'm sure that is not a local company, but that is how heinous these things are. So you're thinking unknowledgeable that you're purchasing tickets to a show, and you give out your social security number. So we've got to be careful, and the internet is really working faster than we are. And I always tell people, you're getting phished on phone calls, you're getting phished on emails, you're getting phished on text messages. Don't open anything up if you don't know who they are. And something I tell people all the time, check who the sender is. Click that button and see that email, and I bet you it does not come from a reputable source. But it's tough. We're always battling. We're always battling, trying to figure it out.
That's a great way to put it. It's a battle on every front, and this battle there's no end in sight.
Right.
People need to, like you said, always verify who you're communicating with. You get like a weird email from, like, say, your boss, maybe give them a call before you respond, before you give them any information. Make sure it is actually your boss emailing you.
My question to you is, what if it does happen to you? What should you do if it happens? If somebody has taken, or you find something on your credit report, because I'm going to go check today. If there's something on my credit report that doesn't belong to me, what are the steps people can take?
The first place I'd go is identitytheft.gov. They give you a pretty clear tool where there's really 3 steps to it. You want to report to law enforcement. You want to use that site to have them prepare for you a plan, a plan to deal with it. Because not every form of identity theft, not every form of fraud and scam is the same. There's no like one perfect answer for every situation,
Right.
But that website will actually give you a plan. So follow the steps to that plan. Definitely let law enforcement know. And that website will actually get you from the Federal Trade Commission a document that you're going to need along with the police report to then go to those credit bureaus and to try to dispute these things that shouldn't be on there, and also reach out to the actual the person who's claiming you owe this or wherever it is. Like, let's say there's a credit card you don't recognize. Once you've got that report from FTC, once you've got that police report and you followed all the steps on your plan, make sure you let them know that this is fraudulent, and then they're supposed to follow their own steps to try to avoid allowing this fraud to stand this way. So that's
great.
The big thing.
Identitytheft.gov.
Identitytheft.gov.
And annualcreditreport.com.
Exactly. Those are 2 huge tools that
We got to make sure we put those on the screen.
Please, everyone
'Cause
needs
I don't
those.
have anywhere to write it down, so I need to know. This is good stuff, and it's very relevant. It can happen to anyone. That's the thing. You can't assume, oh, I'm educated, or I have a job, or I have a house. That doesn't mean anything, because someone can slip something in. And I always tell people, be careful when you give out passcodes. Where did you go to school? What's your mother's maiden name? What town were you born in? Those are questions that are used every day in security questions, and people don't realize you could be giving out very pertinent information about yourself without realizing what you're doing.
I've even seen a very clever scam where someone is trying to, they're basically putting online an application for housing, what everyone's desperate to get right now. And in the questions for this application for housing is a lot of very obvious security questions, things that your pet's name What does that got to do with you, landlord? Like, all sorts of questions that are obviously geared at stealing information from the individual for the purpose of trying to break into their accounts.
Now, on that note, when is it okay to give your social? I'm thinking a credit card application. Is a rental application, normally they ask for your credit, they're going to look for your social security and date of birth. I mean, things that people should think that are obvious and what should not be obvious would be.
A background check functions a whole lot like a credit report, like someone asking for your credit. And unfortunately, in those circumstances, you might want to give your social so they can complete it, but only do that if you are very comfortable and very confident and feel very secure in who you're dealing with. And that's why people need to do a little bit of research. They need to make sure they're dealing with an actual landlord, an actual business who functions as a landlord, and not just some random person they found on the internet. One thing I tell people to avoid is try to avoid housing on like Craigslist. You know what I mean? It's just a cesspool for fraud and scams.
And it's so disheartening because people suffer a lot through that. So thank you for that advice, and I'm going to go check my credit report today.
Please do,
yes.
And everyone should be
And hopefully I won't need identitytheft.gov. I'll only need the annual credit report.
I hope. It was an honor speaking to you today, Commissioner Uribe.
No, thank you for the opportunity and all the wonderful information and resources.
And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of The Domino Effect. We appreciate your support. Until next time.
The Legal Aid Society has existed for over 60 years, providing legal representation to clients on issues similar to those discussed in this episode. The Legal Aid Society wants residents to know that when faced with legal troubles, you are and should still be able to receive high-quality legal representation and access to justice, regardless of your income. If you reside in Orange County District 3 and have questions about your local laws and regulations, you may contact Commissioner Mayra Uribe's office by calling 407-836-5140. If you are seeking assistance on a legal matter such as consumer debt, family law, housing, even immigration, contact the Legal Aid Society law firm by calling 407-841-8310. The Legal Aid Society is a nonprofit law firm that relies greatly on volunteerism and donations. For more information on how you can help the organization keep its doors open, visit legalaidocba.org. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Domino Effect. And remember, perpetual goodness goes a long way.